Hello everyone, Sam from Ikigai back again for our final milestone to give you a little demo and showcase video of all things deployment. We're going to go through four things in this video. First is going to be the initial account setup, all the different things that you need to have just to get things running. Next we'll walk you through how to deploy the Hydra auction front end using GitHub pages and GitHub actions. Next, we'll go through how to deploy a delegate cluster so you can have delegate servers and a Hydra head that you can query from your Hydra auction front end using the VM of your choice, whether you want to use AWS or Azure. We're going to be using Azure. And then finally, we'll go through actually using the deployment site, and I'll walk you through the site that we have deployed live using pre-prod testnet and just show off what we have there available for you. So yeah, let's jump into it. All right, the first thing you're going to want to set up is a BlockFrost account. Now, if you're not familiar with BlockFrost, basically what this is it's a service that allows us to interact with the blockchain. So you can get this free starter project. It's got 50,000 requests a day. Should be plenty for all that you need. You can go to your dashboard here, and if you're signed in with an account, then it'll show you this project ID. And that's the first thing that you're going to need, is you're going to need to take that project ID and keep that for later. The next account you're going to want to set up is a Mixpanel account. Now this one isn't technically necessary for the app to function, but it's how we handle all of our analytics as well as health checks, error reporting, stuff like that. So basically it just allows us to send events up into a project, and then you're able to view them there. So you can create an account. Again, you can get free accounts, totally fine. Here's the account that I have. You can see I got this. Shout out to Eric. He also helped a lot with the front end here. And if we go into, here's a board specifically made for this project, we can see, all of the metrics, and I'll be able to show you that more in the site, but you'll need to go into your settings and find two specific things. The first thing that you're going to want to get is this public board link. You might have to create this, but there's this public URL, and it's this code right here that we want. You're going to take that, and you're going to save that for later when we're deploying the front end. The other thing that you're going to want, again, for deploying the front end, is to go to Settings, Project Settings. And here, when we load this up, down in this Access Keys section, there's a private key that allows you to upload events to Mixpanel. Those are the two key strings that you're going to need for integrating Mixpanel into your front end. All right, well now we can start deploying that front end. So before we get started, just mentioning, like, if you want to run this locally, which you probably will, there's acquired software. You probably already know this, but you're going to need Node.js, and you're going to need Git. That is important because you're also going to need GitHub, assuming you're going to do this the way that I'm going to do this, which is you're going to start by forking this repository. So I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna make a nice little fork of this. I don't have to copy pretty much anything, but I'm just creating a nice little fork here. And so this will basically take that entire code base and put it in my own, and that will allow me to create my own deployment here and do everything that I want to do, but have control of it for personal use. So yeah, here we go. You can see GitHub has created this fork. Importantly, in here we have this github.workflows master.yml file. And this basically outlines the information that needs to run to spin this up into a GitHub Pages site. In here, there are also some values here, which are these environment variables or secrets. Those are the first things that you're going to want to set. So if we look over here into the .m.example, if you're developing locally, you're going to want to copy this file and then basically take these and put them over here, but with your own, right? Obviously, you're going to need your own BlockFrost API key, your own tokens. These ones are mock tokens. They don't actually work. But if you're doing this for just the deployment, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to create an environment. So to do that, we're going to come down to this environments page, and we're going to create a new environment. I'm going to call it GitHub Pages here. And then we're going to configure that environment, and you don't really need to do anything here except for adding these environment secrets. And here I'm going to take this value, which was this guy over here. Then we're going to take a value here, or what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take the one that you created with your Blockfrost project, put that into the value here, add that secret, and then you're just going to repeat that 3 times. You're going to, with each of the values in here, and it'll eventually look like this. Okay, so now you've got that, you're ready to start deploying. All right, in order for this to actually deploy, we need to trigger this GitHub action that is defined in master.yml. And we can see here that it runs on either a push to master or a pull request to master. So what I'm going to do is actually in browser here, I'm just going to make a quick little edit and push to master. And so I'm going to come here into package.json and I'm going to rename the name of this to just something like Sam's Hydra app. I'm going to commit that and commit it directly to the master branch here. And when I do that, it should trigger a run of this workflow here. Update package.json is now running deploy front end. And we can watch this run, and shortly it should publish to our site. All right, so it looks like this ran. So what we can do now is we can check, and because this is under my personal account, what we're going to do is we're going to go to samdelaney.github.io/Hydra auction frontend, and there it is. All right, now it's time to get into part 2 of the video, which is how to spin up your own Hydra delegate cluster and register it for Hydra auctions so that people can create auctions using your Hydra head. You can do this with any Linux machine, any environment. So if you wanted to use AWS or whatever, some sort of dpin thing, it should be fine to do whatever, but the details will be slightly different. This is just how we have it set up, so that's what I'm going to walk you through. So I've got right here our Azure dashboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a resource, and specifically we're going to want a virtual machine. Now the details of this aren't particularly important, but I recommend following the minimum hardware requirements for a stake pool. Since we're running on testnet, something like this is pretty reasonable. So yeah, go ahead and create that up, and then we'll SSH in and get started on setting it up. Okay, once you have your VM and you've SSH'd into it, there's 5 key technologies that you're going to need for 3 key steps. First, you're going to need to clone the repo, so you're going to need Git. As you can see here, I have Git already installed. So I'm going to use Git to download our off-chain library. Just clone it real quick. And now we can see inside. Okay, so now we have the off-chain library. Now the next step is to configure it. So to do that, we're going to go over to these docs here. If you go into the Hydra auction docs, there's this delegate cluster MD file. And this will have all of the information for configuring your delegate cluster. As you can see at the top of this file, there are 3 other technologies, and these are 3 more of those 5 key technologies. We've got Cardano Node, Cardano CLI, and Hydra Node. Now, if you already have these installed, that's great. The next steps will be easy for you. There is also a trick that I can show you where you can use that 5th technology, which is Docker, and the Docker Compose file that we have here to actually get access to these without needing to go through all of the configuration that you need to do when you're setting it up for the first time by just letting that Docker Compose file do the configuration for you. So that's what I'll be showing you. But yeah, if you have access to these locally in your terminal, then you should be able to just run them locally instead of needing to do the extra little steps that I'm going to be showing here. Okay, so switching back to my SSH'd in client here, I want to navigate to Docker delegate cluster, which I've already done here. You can see Hydra auction off-chain Docker delegate cluster. And if I ls in this directory, we can see there's 2 config files and a docker compose.yaml file. We don't need to mess with the 2 configs yet, because what we're going to do is we're going to spin up this docker compose first, just to get access to the Hydra node and the Cardano CLI that we need to generate the keys that we will then be using in our config. So now we have this set up for us, and we can see these inputs coming through, which means that we now have all of these running. And that's great news for us, because what we can do is with a new terminal, we'll be able to go in and start making queries to this. So we can do a sudo docker ps, and we should be able to see, all right, we've got these delegate clusters, delegate servers that are up. Now the Cardano node is healthy, and that's all we really need. The delegate servers have exited, and that's because the configuration isn't quite set up. So we're going to do the first part of the configuration, which all we need is the Cardano node. And then for the second part, these will start working again. So to get started, I'm going to use docker exec to create a shell in this Cardano node. So I'm going to go now that we're in here, let's confirm that Cardano CLI is available. There it is. So that means that we're now ready to come here and generate some keys. So I'm going to copy this in right here. And we can see that those have been created for us. Great. So what I want to do is actually put these all into one directory that will be easy to copy in and out of this, because what we're going to do is we're actually going to copy this out of our Docker container. And remember, this is still part of this little workaround so that you don't have to install your Cardano node CLI and all that yourself. Okay, so let me make a quick directory. We'll call this keys. We'll copy those files over into the directory so that they're available there, and then we're going to do the rest of our work there. Okay, so we're going to do the Cardano 2 keys here. Then we're going to do these wallet keys as well. And with a quick check, keys are all there. Great. Okay, one more thing that I want to show you before we exit this is we want to build the addresses as well. This will be important for funding the testnet faucets, and we need to do these for the Cardano keys. It's a little out of order for our directions here, but that's okay because it'll save us a step of not needing to exit and then re-enter this Docker container. So making sure that we're in this directory where all of our keys are, we're going to generate these addresses using Cardano CLI address build. I pulled up this little guy over here. We'll copy that over. And then with this, we just want to make sure that these names are correct. So we'll call you Cardano. We'll call this guy Cardano.pk. And now if we do a quick ls, there's that Cardano.address. So now we just need to repeat. All right, now as we can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 address files available. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at these and then go to this testnets faucet linked here and put those in, get them some test data. Because there's a limit to the address, what you're probably going to want to do is you're going to want to send this to a wallet that you have control over, and then from there split it out to those 4 keys. You don't need a ton of ADA in here, but yeah, make sure that you get a little bit of funds and get them split to each of those 4 addresses that you have in the address files over here. Alright, so now I've opened up a 3rd tab, and I'm here in this Hydra auction off-chain library that we pulled, and you can see there's this keys directory, but there's nothing in it. So what I want to do is I want to copy those files from this tab over here down into this. And so we went into, if I do a we went into this container right here, this Cardano node, and so I can do a quick little copy into this, and now if we do an ls keys, bam, all our keys are here locally. Great. So now we're going to want to restart our containers. So we'll do a those stopped, and we will restart them. All right, those have compiled. As you can see, it took a little longer this time, but that's good news because now our delegate servers are up and running, and we can see that they're available. They're accepting connections. So I'm going to repurpose this guy. This is not in use anymore. And let's do another one of these, and look at that, everything is up. Great. So now we can do the same trick that we did on the Cardano node, but this time with this container, the delegate server containers, which will have the Hydra node up. So I'm going to run sudo docker exec and now if we do this, we are in. Great. And if I run, look at that, Hydra node is up and ready. So now I'm going to generate some more here. These are going to go, let's cd into keys again, and let's run our Hydra node files. And now if I ls in keys, look at that. We have not only all of the wallet and Cardano files that we had, but we also have these Hydra, SK, and VK files. Great. All you got to do is copy these files over again, and you got to remember to copy from this delegate server instead of from the Cardano node this time. All right, we're pretty much done here. We can go in and adjust the configuration here if you want. For example, if we wanted to run on preview instead of pre-prod. However, these are all already set with pretty sensible defaults, so you actually don't need to mess with the configuration here. If you do, it's not hard to find. You just gotta go to the Docker delegate cluster directory, and then if we ls in here, we can view. This guy here's got all the config that you want. There is still one final step that we need to do, and that is setting this Cardano node socket path environment variable. In this case, we're gonna want to set it to /ipc/node.socket. So we'll export. And then we will go for a printf just to confirm. point, you should have a delegate cluster. It's waiting to accept connections, but it hasn't gotten any connections because nobody knows where to find it. That's the next step. We're going to be registering the delegate group. And in fact, that's something that is now dipping into our front end. And so I can start with the demonstration of how to use the front end that you've deployed. Okay, so I've pulled up our Hydra auction deployment, and I'm going to connect my wallet right here. That's step number 1. Number 2 is we're going to go down here to this little tucked away register a delegate group button. Click on that and it brings up this form. Okay, so the information you're going to need here is a name. You can call this whatever you want. Don't mind the ones that I've already made. We're going to call this demo delegate group. Okay. Next, you're going to need to add the WebSocket servers and HTTP servers that correspond to your deployment that you've created. So in order to do that, we're going to need to get the public IP of your VM that you created. Now, I don't want to show you my dashboard because there's some private information on there, but the public IP is this right here. I just copied it out of there. And the format that you're going to use for WebSockets is you're going to take that public IP and you're going to do and you're going to, like that. And same thing for, do this here, but we're going to do it with a 7021. Okay, and then for HTTP, it's going to be pretty much the same. We're going to do that, but it's going to be 7010. It's going to be 7011. Now, those aren't necessarily going to be the same ports that you're looking for, but that gets set in the configuration. So if you've stayed with that default configuration, that's what you're going to need to do. And then I'm going to submit this, and I'm going to need to sign this transaction. All right, just signed it off screen, and now we can see that transaction has submitted. That delegate group is registered. And so the next step is I'm going to go over here to this Create tab, and you can see I have an NFT right here. He's ready to go. And I can select that NFT. I can bring him into the page. And there's a bunch of these delegate groups. And it looks like that transaction hasn't loaded. So I'm going to wait for a second for this delegate group to load before going to the next step. Okay. Waited a little bit, and look at that. We have our demo delegate group up and running. So I can do this. We've got some sensible defaults set here. So I'm not going to change any of these, but I am going to set some dates for these. There we go. So this is basically when the auction's going to start, or when I'm able to start the auction, when the auction's going to end, the time that the winner has to settle the auction by purchasing the lot on the layer 1 by the amount that they claimed they would. And then the cleanup time is basically the time that all of this gets wrapped up and we can dispose of all of our UTXOs. All right, I've got this all set. Let's submit this transaction, create our auction. Okay, so that first transaction that we signed was to reserve a slot, basically showing intent for the auction and guaranteeing that we're connected with this server, which we can see here. We've added a reservation for the slot. Next, we'll sign this second transaction, which is the actual layer 1 transaction of submitting the auction. All right, now that that has been signed, we just need to wait. And if I do a little Control-Shift-I here, we will see we're waiting for this, we're pulling for this particular transaction. We'll see it pull for a little bit, and then shortly we should see that transaction come through. All right, after waiting a bit, we can see we've got this 200 OK response. That means that the transaction has submitted. So if we go back to the Explore tab here, we should see, there we go, we've got this auction ready to go. So there you have it. You now have a deployment of the Hydra auction front end. You have a deployed delegate group, and you have them connected together so that they can create and run auctions. Now, if you've been watching closely, you may have noticed that the URL here changed. That's because I wanted to show off that this is actually already live. I'm not going to be keeping up my Sam Delaney demo deployment that I've just created here, but what we have here is one under the MLabs. The original repository has its own deployment that you can go play with if you'd like to play with that. So that is located at mlabs-haskell.github.io/Hydra auction front end, and it's linked there in the GitHub repository as well. All right, that's it. Now, if you've already watched the final closeout report, this is going to be the last video you're probably seeing on Hydra auctions, so I just wanted to throw out a couple of shout outs there. Shout out to the MLabs team. It's been really awesome working with them. They're both fun to work with and really technically knowledgeable. Give them a follow if you haven't on Twitter. Go hop in their Discord. They do really cool stuff. And then, yeah, also, if you haven't, give us a follow at Ikigai Technologies. We'd love to hear from you, and we're doing a bunch of other cool stuff too. So, yeah, I hope you all have a great day. See you later.